Are you worried that your social media engagement is taking a dip during this time? Today, we're going to talk about some techniques and best practices of how you can keep students in your youth ministry engaged in what you're doing online.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ministry Coach Podcast. I am Jeff Lascola. This is my lovely wife, Kristen Lascola.
Hey, can you still say smoking hot, wife?
Oh, is that but that's supposed to be if I'm the youth pastor and you're my wife. I don't know how that works.
Potato.
I don't know how that works when you're the youth pastor. And I'm just
smoking hot wife.
So I'm your smoking hot husband, Jeff Lascola.
Oh, yeah, that's how I should introduce you.
All right.
This is Jeff, my smoking hot husband.
Hey, everybody.
You know what? I never wanted anyone to say that about me because I feel like that immediately invites judgment. Like, she's not that pretty.
Yeah,
you know?
I can see that.
And it's just like people will size you up. Maybe they weren't sizing you up until
what if you
someone
aimed
said
low. Here's my average to very unattractive wife, Kristen Lascola, and they'd be like, hey,
she's not that bad.
She's pretty
good. But then
looking.
people think you're a jerk.
Well, they probably think that anyways. Today, we've got a really good show for you. We are going to be talking about social media and the engagement you have with your students.
Yeah, and it's safe to say we all are on social media all the time now. I would argue even ad nauseum.
Yeah.
There's a vocab word for the day.
Fancy.
And I think people I never thought I'd say, think people are getting a little sick of social media. So today, actually, what we're just going to talk about is some techniques more than anything, best practices for this specific time of COVID, but they probably would translate outside of the quarantine time as well.
Yeah.
But just how should you be using it? What should you pay attention to? What should you be posting to get the most participation possible? Because I think that's kind of, if we're doing real talk as youth pastors, I think that's the little thorn in our side right now of discouragement of where is everyone?
Right.
Do they not like us anymore? And there's nothing more discouraging than when you're on live or something and you see the viewership go ding, 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 down,
or worse,
down,
when
down.
you start and continue and there's nobody there, maybe. I would think that would be worse.
Yeah.
Or you don't even start with a lot. But yeah, I guess if you're seeing them dwindle, that would be pretty depressing. It's
discouraging.
Too.
Yeah. And I mean, even comparing numbers from when we first started to now. So anyways, we're going to talk about just all right, well then what are some best practices? So right off the bat, I think when all of this happened, a lot of us as adults were oh my gosh,
high anxiety,
yes,
freaked out, not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think if we had to say, okay, what was our leading emotion? It would probably have been fear.
Right.
Like you said, anxiety, stress. And so what did we need to hear as adults? We needed to hear that faith talk, that trust in God talk, that it's, it's
going to be okay. He's in control.
Right. We're a citizen of heaven, not of here. Those were the talks that were okay, everyone breathe. But you want to know, I took a poll early on with my students because I had a feeling that they were not struggling with what we were struggling with as adults. And I was noticing,
Come on, here we go.
Bing, bong, boom, starting now. All right. I noticed a lot of youth pastors projecting that emotion onto their students.
Right.
And so they were doing similar talks, the kinds of talks they wanted to hear, they were doing for their students. It's going to be okay, guys.
We can get through this.
Right.
We're all in this together.
And the students are I'm just bored and I miss my friends. So I took a little poll and on our Instagram, which, you could argue small sample size, but just to kind of get a feel of where they're at. Are you more afraid or are you more scared? Mm-hmm. And one person said afraid and he was
Well, you said more afraid or more scared? You mean afraid or bored?
There's a difference between afraid and scared.
We're really splitting hairs with these polls. I'd say 98% afraid and maybe 2% scared. I'm gonna be really honest. So, afraid or bored was the poll.
And that's why you're here, Jeff. That is why you are my helpmate.
For your smoking hot husband. All right. So what was the results?
Okay, so we said bored or scared. One person said scared, and you want to know who it was? My 55-year-old leader. Okay. So he's like, I'm scared. And everyone else said bored. And so I just am wanting to say that right off the bat, because I think that is the lens through which we need to kind of view the rest of tonight of what we're talking about, of our social media and how we use it and all of that, because the leading foot here is going to be connectivity. It's going to be, dare I say, entertainment. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fellowship. It's going to be all of that. It's not going to be like, this is your one-stop shop for hope, you know, which sounds like, whoa, what kind of pastor are you? I'm the kind of pastor who understands what our flock
needs.
I was going to say our shepherd.
What our shepherd needs.
What our flock needs right now. And they are just bored to tears. And not that the church is some like YMCA, like make them laugh, make them laugh.
YMCA. I don't know what that even means.
Like a place to hang out.
Oh, okay.
It's not just like a boys and girls
with a variety show, apparently.
I don't know. That's what they wanted.
Make them laugh, make them smile.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
So that's the lens we're going to view this through. So, number one, see your social media as a platform to engage people on a fun level. So what does that mean exactly? Do not worry right now about your social media aesthetic. Okay. A lot of people
want all the colors to match.
Yeah.
And there's a flow, and every other post needs to be a spiritual quote.
And it needs to look cool. Like you pick a color palette, you pick a theme, you pick an aesthetic, you know, and you want it to look clean, crisp, and, you know, trendy, fine. But I think right now we need to kind of just throw out aesthetic, and we need to make sure when someone scrolls through your wall, they see as many faces as possible. This is
not
like
the same face, many different faces.
And P.S. your face probably the least.
Specifically me.
Yes, get off my social media. Why are you always posting selfies, you weirdo? We already had an episode about selfies.
Yeah, so a leader should be the least.
Yeah, like they know we're the pastor, fine, move on. But they need to like, hello, is anyone out there? Like they need to see their friends. They need to see their leaders. They need to see funny memes. They need to see funny videos. They need to see, you know, if you're promoting something, do it in a really funny way, something that's fun to look at. You know, they don't want to like spend all day on TikTok and then go to your page and it's like
boring.
You know,
they're already bored. You don't need to give them any extra incentive to be bored.
Exactly. Well said. So it's kind of like, so how do we accomplish that? So one way, and this is kind of like bleeding into another point, is you should not be doing all the teaching right now. This is such a great opportunity to give other people a teaching platform. We're doing this thing called 1-minute devos. And so I'll contact certain students that I think would do a great job, or leaders, and I'll give them a couple questions such as, hey, what has God taught you during this time about your priorities and about your relationship with him? Can you tell me that in about 1 minute? And I'm literally blown away. I had this 7th grade girl, like I didn't even give her verses, prompts. And she's like, if you open up to Ephesians 5, it says da da da. And she's like literally giving a mini sermon. That's awesome. As a 7th grader. I didn't even, I watched it before I posted it, but other than
you're filtering it, you're not making them you're not going to post whatever.
And even if they're slightly awkward, you know what? I've always learned as an adult, what I think is awkward and what students think is awkward is not the same thing. They just like to see each other being platformed, and whoa, they taught out of the Bible, and whoa, they shared, and
what an encouragement to each other. Like, well, yes, I want to do that.
And then they all comment on it like, way to go. That was so awesome, you know, and they realize once again, this is their youth group. This isn't like the Kristen show, like, because if it were, I'd make them laugh, full circle. You know, like it's not the Kristen show. It's about us, guys. Like this is us.
Oh, you're referencing a horrible show
Stop
that makes
it.
everybody cry.
You're making all of our viewers go away.
Cut.
And our listeners. If you ever dare blaspheme, This Is Us again.
All right.
So
This Is Us. Boring. Go ahead.
you haven't even watched it. You don't even know what you're talking about. So no, you haven't. Like, wow. What season?
Move on. Any of them. It's the same thing. Someone died, someone cried, someone lied. Moving on.
That was good.
It's true.
Whoa. Yeah. So get people on your social media. And so through the Devos, 1 minute. And that brings up another great point. Your messages, if you're doing the weekend messages, make them short.
Yeah.
Make them super duper short. So
And I feel that way with the adult messages right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, like it just gets to a point. I don't know if it's something to do with being home, or I don't feel like it was the message. I honestly feel like it was being home.
Of course. Yeah. It's a different level of engagement. And so like, oh my gosh, think of like a 12 or 13-year-old. So don't flatter yourself by like, I have so much wisdom to share right now. These kids are just going to be spiritually strong. Guess what? They're one click away from the best sermons on the planet with graphics and angles and music and different locations. You sitting in front of your phone for 20 minutes is like a death sentence, right? I learned that the hard way. I'm not like preaching from like, up in the sky.
Weird.
I'm saying
from experience,
it was like, oh my gosh, this is way too much content.
Pre-recording messages,
and they were like 30 minutes,
making them very polished.
Yep. And now we try to keep them 5 minutes or under. Yeah. I think it's a lot better than a full length 30 something minute message. So keep them extremely short. And then when it comes to your social media, another thing, so like having a bunch of faces, memes, funny stuff, is we did this thing. It was actually my intern's idea, like a leader takeover week. And so every single day, a different leader would take over our social media.
That's cool.
So we changed the password temporarily, if anyone's concerned about that. We trust our leaders. I have nothing to hide, but we'll change it back just because we don't need a password out there in the world, but so every leader, like, they would like, hey guys, like wake up in the morning, kind of show them a little bit about their day. And then they would do a cool thing like, hey, ask me questions. Like, and students would really engage. Like, when did you come to know Jesus? Like it would get spiritual, but then it would just be funny, random questions. Like, what was your first job? Or what was your most embarrassing moment? And they had so much fun. Leaders really went for it. Like one leader, she hosted like a 5-minute like power workout session. And then another leader played this trivia game with them all day. And then went and literally delivered cookies to the homes of the winners.
Oh, that's cool.
Like I didn't tell her to do that. Like I was like, that's rad. She like really went for it. And then another thing, so we're usually on Instagram Live. That's where we host our programs and our weekends. And speaking of platforming people, always having a student join you. In the beginning, I would like have a student join me to open us in prayer or read and look up a verse. And now we have students join us for the games.
Which is exciting for them too, because it's kind of like, who's it going to be? I want to see it, who it is. And maybe it'll be me.
And they all like, pick me next, pick me next, pick me next. I love that. And you could argue, well, on Zoom, you see all of them all the time. But here's what I've learned is that when you have them join you on Instagram Live, it's the equivalent of bringing them up on stage. Yeah. And what junior hire does not want to be up on stage? Well, a few, but most of my kids want to be up on stage and they're like dying to get up there. So when it's like just you and the student, they're like, hi, they're like so excited to be there. So, and then another little trick is once they've joined you live, have someone, probably one of your leaders or another student, it's fine, screen record so that you have little promotional clips for your next gathering. And it creates a little bit of FOMO too. Like we had this girl, one of the challenges was she got in the shower fully dressed and her mom's like, what the heck are you doing, Emma? And we were like, but we had it on screen record and then we edited just a short little clip and we could show it and showed everyone, hey, if you didn't join us, this is the kind of stuff we're doing. We're zany and, you're missing out. And it just created a little bit of energy and memories and all of that kind of stuff. So, those are some of like our social media tactics, kind of in a nutshell, pretty like simple stuff, but just through looking through youth ministry social medias, it was just some things that I'm like, hey, like these are best practices.
Yeah.
At the moment, we'll probably think of some other ones. And then real quick, kind of want to end on this one is, Zoom fatigue is real. Everyone's been talking about that a lot. But what I wanted to end with is kind of like, let's not add technical difficulties to an already volatile situation. So Zoom fatigue, and then you add a technical difficulty. And what I mean by that is, these Zoom links. So we go on live, Instagram live, and then I say, all right, bye guys, go to your Zoom groups. And then they log off and then they click on their Zoom link. But that Zoom link needs to be fresh and available at the top of their inbox. So I think what I've noticed a lot of
fresh meaning on the top of their inbox, not meaning a whole brand new link.
No, but you need
link.
to be for a while, but then people just let it go and they don't realize those links have expired, and then kids can't get into their groups, and then you're getting text messages from parents and stuff like that. So you need to make sure your links have not expired. And I recommend sending those links, even if it's the same exact link, the same exact password, the same exact meeting ID. I think it needs to be sent every single week. Hey guys, all I do is copy and paste it in my parent communication. I communicate with parents every Monday, give them what they need to know. And then the last portion of the email is all the Zoom links. It'll say like 6th grade girls led by this person and this person. Here's your link. Here's your password. 7th grade boys, whatever.
That makes sense, because even after a couple of days, how many emails you get.
Exactly.
And if it was a full week, that's going to be buried. I get amazed sometimes. I'm like, I can't believe I just scrolled back pages and pages. I'm only on like 2 days.
Right. And so then
find.
Parents getting stuff from the school and getting stuff from, and so it's like, they don't want to go through their email buried.
And
like,
when you're
where
on
is this?
week 14 of quarantine.
Just make it easy for them. The easier we can make this for people, the better. Yeah. And making sure leaders are keeping them updated, and then encouraging your families, hey, make sure you have the most updated version of Zoom, because that's been another problem people have been running into, is they haven't been updating the program, and so they've been having some problems. But yeah, make sure you send that out. I just keep them saved and keep them in a Word document and copy and paste that right into my email. And parents have thanked me for it, so it is working, and they are noticing and they are appreciative. They've written back and said, thank you so much for your clear communication. And that's really, during this time, I would make sure you're sending out parent communication once a week, telling them everything they need to know concisely and clearly, and if you're like, well, what is there to tell? We don't have anything going on. Tell them what you're working on next to keep their kids engaged. We had an episode recorded prior to this about like events and games and stuff that you can do. So maybe try one of the events, the Where's Waldo or the scavenger hunt or something like that. And that'll give you something to communicate. P.S. On those events, I think we mentioned the last episode, the parents were probably just as excited as the kids for them. And if you can create raving fans and parents of your ministry, you're golden.
Yeah. That's your ticket right there.
Yes.
She's referring to the episode we did, the COVID episode we did before this, which would be a couple weeks ago. But there is a download. If you want that PDF, just email ministrycoachpodcast@gmail.com, and we can go ahead and send that over to you. And we've sent that out a lot of times, and a lot of people said they really appreciated it. Some of it's old stuff, some of it's new stuff, but it might just be something that's a refresher, and maybe spark something new that you might want to try and do. But just to keep that engagement, keep that attendance up, and keep that excitement with your group.
Yeah, definitely. And they need to these people still exist. You know, we don't want to become this distant, faded memory. Like, oh, remember when I used to go to that one youth group, and having leaders show up at their door. Like, cool. I think that's rad. Like, if you can get your small group leaders to go deliver something, send a handwritten note, like, I sent that to my leaders. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, and they loved it. It was simple, but they were like, oh my gosh, I never get good mail. Thank you. So keeping that human touch. But yeah, I mean, these are all things that are, just a little tweak, like nothing like, all right, you this big like purchase. It's just little things, but it'll keep that energy going, like you said.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for checking out this episode. We hope that it provided a ton of insight for you to create health in yourself, your ministry, and your church.
And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Ministry Coach podcast wherever you're watching or listening. And it would mean so much to us if you would rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts.
And we'd also encourage you to share it with a friend so that it can go to help more people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.